So general healthy eating is once you have that calorie and macro plan dialed in, you want about 40 to 50%, maybe even 60 if you're a really big distance runner. You want about 40 to 60% of your calories coming from carbohydrates. Okay, 40% is more if you're a weightlifter and not doing as much cardio or running. Also, if you're really trying to lose weight, that 40% can be beneficial and kind of which is a little on the lower end. Okay, and then you want somewhere between 15 and 30% of your calories, your total calories coming from protein, and that's going to look different based on your goals. Okay. Hey, this is Lisa Nelson, host of Fuel Your Finish podcast. And today I want to talk to you about exercise and nutrition and give you some information on best practices and help set you up for success both on and off the run and in and out of the gym. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that you have your overall goals set up correctly for your nutrition. So if you're trying to lose weight, gain weight, maintain weight, that's going to look a little bit different, but I'm going to assume you have that dialed in already. Now, if you don't, then I want to say you can definitely reach out to me and we can talk about getting you a personalized goal. Another thing that you can do is you can jump on an app like MyFitnessPal. You can create a profile and answer the questions that it gives you, and it may give you a pretty good idea of how much calories and macros you need. And so that is just kind of like where you want to start is you want to have your kind of overall nutrition. You want to have the right amount of calories and macros. And when I say macros, that is short for macronutrients. A lot of you probably know that, but some of you probably don't. And the difference between that and micronutrients are going to be our vitamins, minerals, all of those good things that make up our nutrition. And then our macronutrients are basically the building blocks of calories. So calories is just another way of saying energy. And it's the total energy content of the foods that we eat. Okay. And so again, that's made up of protein, fat, and carbohydrates. Those are our macros. And so it's important to have your macro plan kind of dialed in your total calories. Again, if you're trying to lose weight, that's going to look different. You're going to be eating a little bit less than you would if you're trying to maintain or gain. Now, what a lot of people do is if they're trying to lose weight, they may have that under quite a bit. You may be under fueling, and that's going to hurt performance. And ultimately, it might even hurt your weight loss goals. So it is helpful to get that plan dialed in. So general healthy eating, and that is important for exercise and reaching your performance goals. So general healthy eating is once you have that calorie and macro plan dialed in, you want about 40 to 50%, maybe even 60 if you're a really big distance runner. You want about 40 to 60% of your calories coming from carbohydrates. Okay, 40% is more if you're a weightlifter and not doing as much cardio or running. Also, if you're really trying to lose weight, that 40% can be beneficial and kind of which is a little on the lower end. Okay. And then you want somewhere between 15 and 30% of your calories, your total calories coming from protein. And that's going to look different based on your goals. Okay. So if you are an endurance runner or just a recreational runner, you probably are going to want somewhere in the ballpark of between 1.5 to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight of protein. Okay. And again, that is going to be highly dependent on individual goals as well as any past medical history or anything like that. So always important to, kind of double check that and get personalized recommendations if you have any reason for concern. And if you're on the weightlifting end, you're definitely going to be closer to that 2 grams per kilogram of protein per kilogram of body weight. Again, assuming there's nothing else medical going on or anything else to consider. Okay. So that said, that's kind of what your kind of macro and calorie plan looks like. And then you're going to want to think about, so what is general healthy eating? Okay. So for that portion that's carbohydrates, let's just think of our plate like a big circle. Okay. So you want to take half that plate and make that your non-starchy vegetables. And that's going to be things like carrots, salads, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, we all need vegetables, okay? Even if we're running long distances, even if we're lifting a lot of weight, even if we're trying to lose weight or gain weight, we need vegetables, okay? That is where our vitamins are coming from. Well, it's coming from everything, but all of that color, that's antioxidants, super important. Also, fiber is very important, and we're getting a lot of fiber from that stuff. So we'll talk more about that in another episode, but eat your vegetables, please. The average person needs 3 to 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day total. Okay. So if you have a higher calorie goal, you actually need even more. So it could be up to 9 servings even for a lot of men. So you want to definitely be thinking about that and prioritizing getting those vegetables in and fruit. And fruit is good, even though carbohydrates often get a bad rap and fruit does come from, or fruit is made up of carbohydrates. You do need fruit. So please eat fruit, even if you're trying to lose weight. Okay. So half of your plate is those non-starchy vegetables, and then a quarter of your plate is going to be lean protein. Okay, chicken, fish, eggs, tofu, and then steak, and then a quarter of your plate is going to be carbohydrates. Okay, now for my runners, we're probably going to go a little heavier on carbs at times. Okay, but we'll talk about that. Okay, and again, those carbs are going to be good, healthy carbohydrates, just not super processed stuff. So we're talking about sweet potatoes, baked potatoes, brown rice, white rice if it's before the run, whole wheat pasta, things like that, whole wheat bread or whole grain, oatmeal, cereal, all those good things. Okay, now you can kind of think about that for lunch and dinner. Breakfast, of course, we're going to probably go heavier on fruit. A lot of people don't eat vegetables for breakfast unless you're a smoothie kind of person. And then the next thing you want to think about is performance, okay, and how you feel during your workout. Okay, so there's a couple of different things that go into that. How you perform on your workouts is a combination of what you're taking in those 3 to 4 hours before, but it's also reflected in your total diet because if you're like low in iron or vitamin D, that's going to affect how you feel during your workout. If you're not getting enough calories throughout the day, you're not going to feel great on your workout. If you're dehydrated, you're not going to feel great when you're working out. Okay. So those are just some kind of things to be mindful of. And so let's focus specifically at this point on pre-exercise nutrition. Are you tired of stressing out over what to eat during the week? Well, so many of my clients have the same problem, and I know I do. So I created this full week of meal plans. It includes grocery lists, meal prep guides, as well as nutrition information. So it's a great place to start if you're not sure where to start with what to eat. So jump over to the link in the show notes and join hundreds of other people who are already on their way to transformation. So 3 to 4 hours before your workout, you're going to want to get a good, solid, balanced meal like the one I talked about. If you are going for a run, you might not want to go heavy on the vegetables 3 or 4 hours before a run because that might mess up your stomach a little bit, okay? If you don't have a sensitive stomach, if you have a sensitive, please do all the fiber and all the vegetables you want. If you have all of a sensitive stomach, you're going to want to look for a little bit more simple carbs, a little less fat, and a little less fiber those 2 to 3 hours before the run or before the workout. Okay. Those things are going to settle better. So think, more bland foods. We're talking about toast with jelly. Let's say it's breakfast, toast, jelly, maybe an egg, maybe some fruit like a banana. And if you tend to work out first thing in the morning, which is what a lot of people do, try to get some carbohydrates before. If you can eat a banana, if you can take down a sports drink or a couple graham crackers, a slice of toast, even some juice, those are all good options. Another thing you can do, whether or not you're able to get in a little bit in the morning, so let's say you can't get in anything in the morning or it's just a little bit, have a good carbohydrate-based snack before bed. So a bowl of cereal with milk, some toast with peanut butter and jelly, a bagel with jelly. Those are good options for something to kind of get in your system, maximize those glycogen stores the night before. Okay, and so then the next thing you're going to want to think about is about an hour before the workout, 30 minutes before. So again, this is like if you're just waking up and jumping out for your run. Or, maybe you ate breakfast or lunch and you're running later and you have like an hour where you want to kind of take a snack before that. Okay. So again, those are really simple carbohydrates that close to the run. So you are thinking about things like juice, things like sports drink, bananas, graham crackers, maybe fruit snacks, things that are going to be really easily digestible. Okay. And then after the run or the workout, well, actually, let me back up just a minute, because if you are working out, even if you're weightlifting or you're doing like say a HIIT workout or something else besides a run, you do still want to prioritize those carbohydrates before the workout, even if you're lifting, because your body's primary source of energy while it is working out is going to be those carbohydrates. So when you give your body the most easily accessible form of energy, then you are able to let your body take the rest of its energy and use that for the workout rather than digesting your food. So those are actually really important things to consider, even if you're weightlifting. So after the run, that's the next thing you're going to want to think about. I'm going to go to during the workout, but first I'm going to skip to after, because let's assume your workout is an hour or less. You don't really need to do much in between except drink to thirst. So then after all workouts, you're going to want to get a nice balance again of carbohydrates, protein, and some fat, because again, we are replenishing everything that we lost at that point. So we're going to want to go ahead and replenish those glycogen stores. So especially for runners, we're still looking for, I know this may surprise you, we're still looking for a 3 to 4 to 1 ratio of carbs to protein. So you do want protein post-workout, but we're still looking for replenishing those glycogen stores. So, we're talking about a turkey sandwich with some fruit or a yogurt, things like that. You can do a banana and some yogurt. You could do, good old-fashioned chocolate milk after a run. Those are just some options of things you could do if you have a regular meal planned within, 30 minutes to an hour at the most. Those are good things to kind of replenish. If it's going to be more like an hour, get a little snack with a little carbs and a little protein while you wait or get ready for that. Now, that's after the workout. So during the workout, for workouts lasting longer than an hour or runs, you want to make sure that you're getting some carbs during the workout to really maximize your performance. And a good place to start is about 20 to 40 grams of carbohydrates. You can definitely go higher, but a good place to start is probably 20 to 40, because we're thinking about things like tolerance, and we're thinking about just kind of getting used to a new practice too. So things that work really well are gels, gummy snacks. If you can, do a sports drink, that's a great way to kill a couple birds with one stone, because you're getting your fluid, hydration, and electrolytes all at the same time. You may need to add a gel to that if you're looking for more in the 40 grams range. And again, those are numbers that are kind of personalized, but a really good place to start: 20 to 40 grams, 40 to 60 grams per hour after the first hour. Other things you can use, I used to use candy like Mike and Ike's while I was on my run, so that's a good option. Really anything that you can tolerate that sounds good to you. You might have trouble with fiber. It's hard to chew sometimes while you're working out, especially if you're running, so it's easier to just take, a beverage or a gel or something like that. That's why those tend to be popular. But a lot of people like those Belvita snacks. I've had some runners that use those on the run, although be careful of choking while you're trying to eat things and run at the same time. But those are just some ideas for you to kind of get you started. Let's talk a little bit real quick about hydration, and then we're going to wrap up. So in terms of hydration, after the first hour, you can drink to thirst during the first hour. And then after the first hour, we're looking for about 4 to 8 ounces per 15 minutes of fluid. It is helpful if you know that it's going to be longer an hour to get started in that first hour, because even just being dehydrated by about 2%, that can decrease your performance. So, and it's a little hard to catch up once you start to get in that kind of dehydrated state. So good ways to hydrate are, course sports drinks. You do want to make sure that if you're doing electrolytes or salt tabs, that you're also hydrating enough to offset that. So while it is important to get the electrolytes, also make sure you get the fluid with it. And usually we need more fluid than we think. So it is a great idea to get a sweat test and kind of determine your own specific needs. I do offer those if you are interested. And, general recommendations are kind of hard to give with that, but getting, just a standard sports drink is a good place to start. And, I would say err on the side of if it's longer than an hour, just use a sports drink because then, you're going to be sure that you're getting some electrolytes and some carbs with that and balance that out with some gels. I am excited to hear about your run. Please share how this is going for you if you've tried any of these strategies, and please feel free to reach out for personalized recommendations. And if you liked this or this helped you, please share it and have a great run.